What's happening, everybody? On today's show, some kickoff times the TV networks announced for some of our big early season games in the SEC. We'll tell you what those are. And Steve Sarkisian stopping by, talking everything from the A&M rivalry possibly returning and going back to Bryant Denny Stadium. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. Today's episode is brought to you by Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege, and when you enter promo code LockedOnCollege, they're going to throw in a free custom Birddogs Yeti-style tumbler with every order. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And shout out to our everydayers. All right, let's jump into it. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Intercepted. Makes the handoff. Throws in. What a catch.
Around the conference.
And we start with some of the game times starting to get announced for some of the early season games, game times, and networks. And we start with Texas and Alabama. They are getting ready for their rematch on Tuesday. Kickoff time and broadcast details were announced as the Longhorns head out to Tuscaloosa. They will face off September 9th with a 6 p.m. Central kickoff on ESPN. And that is certainly a welcome sign with, remember last year, Fox having the rights and it being an 11 a.m. Central kick. It kind of sucks for the Longhorns because they didn't get Bama at night in DK Royal Stadium, and now suddenly the Longhorns have to go play a night game in Bryant Denny Stadium. But thus, that's how it goes. And, you know, remember last year's game was such an epic battle. Bryce Young taking the team down the field for a game-winning field goal. Quinn Ewers looked great early. He got knocked out of the game. So it's going to be a big one. And there's a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon of Texas right now, feeling like they've got a lot of momentum with Quinn Ewers back, Sarkisian, and all that, while Bama's got questions at their quarterback spot. So going to be an interesting one. Obviously, Texas opens with Rice. Alabama opens with Middle Tennessee State. So both sides get a warm-up game. But obviously, Steve Sarkisian looking for the program's first season with 9+ wins since 2018. And a lot of folks excited to see what they can do. So we'll see. Quinn Ewers back for the Longhorns. And again, it'll be a night game in Bryant Denny Stadium. And we'll see if Bama can do what they're supposed to do, take care of their business, or can the Longhorns get a big early season win and a monster feather in their cap. Another early season game, it is going to be LSU and Florida State in prime time to open the season on September 3rd. Tigers announced on Tuesday that game will kick off at 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern on ABC from Orlando. So the Seminoles, they won last year's game down in New Orleans at the Superdome 24-23. They previously hadn't met since 1991. Florida State holds an 8-2 all-time lead in the series, which started in 1968. LSU's last win came in 1982. That was a game between Bobby Bowden and Jerry Stovall. But LSU coming off a 10-4 season, won the SEC West in the first year under Brian Kelly, and they finished the season in this very spot in Orlando in the Citrus Bowl. They whipped up on Purdue 63-7. Florida State, they won their final 6 games to finish 10-3 last year, and they finished with a victory over Oklahoma in the Cheez-It Bowl. So it's going to be fun to see that one. A quick other scheduling note, and this one kind of going outside of the SEC, although it is 2 future SEC teams. Texas and Oklahoma, their final game in the Big 12 will be broadcast on ABC. It was announced the Red River rivalry, October 7th at the Cotton Bowl. Kickoff time either going to be 11 a.m. or 2:30 Central, so we'll find that time out at a later date. But going to be a big one between Texas and Oklahoma in their last season in the Big 12 as they play one last time before they both come over to the SEC. And hopefully that's a rivalry that comes to the SEC and those guys keep playing each other. Certainly a big one there. More on Texas in a little bit. Steve Sarkisian going to come by. Another game we're going to keep an eye on, Missouri is reportedly working on moving up the date of their season opener. According to KOM8 News there in Columbia, Tigers are exploring the possibility of moving their season opener against South Dakota from a Saturday to a Thursday. Doing so will require SEC approval. The TV news channel reported that Missouri officials felt like last year's Thursday opener was a strong success. Tigers currently scheduled to welcome the Coyotes to Memorial Stadium September 2nd. Last year, Mizzou, they opened on a Thursday against Louisiana Tech and won that game 52-24, 47,000 fans in attendance. So Eli Drinkwitz wanting to start off on the right foot, get fans excited. And look, they'll be heavy favorites over South Dakota. But after that, the Tigers will play Middle Tennessee, Kansas State, and Memphis in their non-conference play. So we'll see if Drinkwitz can rack up some wins there early in the season. All right, we got some transfer portal movement. Let's jump into that. Over at Auburn, the Auburn Tigers, they added a wide receiver in the portal from North Texas, Jair Shorter, coming over. He committed to Auburn, played in 13 games with 11 starts, 23 catches, over 600 yards, 11 touchdowns last season, scored at least one touchdown in 8 games, tied for 7th in the country with those 11 touchdowns, led the country in yards per catch at 27. He was an honorable mention All-Conference USA pick, was Comeback Player of the Year finalist after he played in just 2 games the prior year. He's the second transfer wide receiver to commit to Auburn recently, with Ohio State receiver Caleb Burton coming over. But Shorter ended each of his prior seasons in injury, but in 2019, he had 24 catches for 473 yards, an average of 39 yards per game with 9 touchdowns. So, look, if this kid can stay healthy, Shorter is a big-time receiver that is going to help Auburn along with Caleb Burton, so an upgrade there. And just hours after adding Shorter, the Tigers earned another commitment from a North Texas kid, this one in linebacker Larry Nixon. It's a big get for Hugh Freeze and company. He's a guy who's accumulated over 240 tackles in 4 years there at North Texas. Last year, finished with 105 tackles, 5 tackles for a loss, and a sack. He announced his video on social media. And Auburn now up to 18 transfers coming in this offseason, including Ole Miss linebacker Austin Keys, LSU linebacker Demario Tolan, and now North Texas linebacker Larry Nixon. He said, right now, being in Auburn, it's crazy. You can't beat that stadium. Being in the SEC, he's excited to come over to Auburn. So kudos to Hugh Freeze, 2 big pickups there. Meanwhile, over at LSU, Brian Kelly dipping into the transfer portal to go get a kid he had previously brought to Notre Dame, and that is Logan Diggs. Former Notre Dame starting running back Logan Diggs announced Tuesday he's coming back home to Louisiana and going to go play for LSU and Brian Kelly. It was a late push from South Carolina, but Logan Diggs going back to his home state of Louisiana to play for LSU. Committed to Notre Dame as a high 3-star prospect, spent the first 2 seasons in South Bend, had a nice sophomore season, had 822 yards, 4 touchdowns to the Fighting Irish last year, averaged just under 5 yards per carry, a couple of years of eligibility remaining. Good receiver as well, caught a pair of touchdown passes with over 200 receiving yards out of the backfield. And with Josh Williams and Armani Goodwin still nursing injuries, John Emery battling grades issues, this is a big issue or a big pickup there for Brian Kelly and LSU. So Logan Diggs, is he going to go there and be the instant start at running back at LSU? We will see there. Other moves going on around the conference over at Mississippi State. They are picking up a former Penn State running back in Kevon Lee, former 4-star prospect from the 2020 class out of the state of Florida, was the number 22 running back nationally, becomes the 10th transfer commitment for Zach Arnett, and was productive in his time at Penn State, rushed for over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns in 3 seasons, averaging almost 5 yards per carry. He was jumped over on the depth chart last year by their freshman Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. But again, Kevon Lee, a running back, heading over there to Mississippi State. And another move, Kentucky picked up a commitment from Kevin Larkins on Tuesday. Previously played for Livingstone in Division II as a freshman. He recorded 8 interceptions, which was tied for the Division II overall lead. Finished the year with 40 tackles, a touchdown, in addition to his 8 picks. He was named Defensive Rookie of the Year by the Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association. We'll get that right. And Kentucky now up to 13 transfers because they also added another one on Tuesday. And former NC State running back Demi Sumo-Karngbaye, we'll get that name right later, Sumo-Karngbaye. Figure out pronunciation later. But he led the team on a per-carry basis. Finished second on NC State last year, rushing with over 300 yards, average 5.5 yards per attempt. And he now joins a Kentucky roster looking for a number 1 running back as Chris Rodriguez is off to the NFL. They did bring in Ray Davis from Vanderbilt, who obviously had a very successful year last year, but we'll see if this guy makes any movement there in the backfield for Kentucky. So we will see there. And there you have it. That is the latest news going on around the conference, and a lot of hard pronunciation names for me. So we'll work on some of those this summer with some of these transfers. I'm telling you, the transfer portal's throwing everything off, and kids' names we can't pronounce. All right, coming up next, Steve Sarkisian, a few minutes with him. That is coming your way in just a second. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. A quick message from our friends over at Birddogs. Look, happy to welcome Birddogs into the Locked On family. Got a chance to try on a couple of Birddogs shorts this week, and my goodness, you talk about fit. Perfectly fitting for whatever you want to do. I mean, they got a stretchy fabric that makes you look great. They are comfy. You can wear them to the park, to work out, to the movies, to Disney World, wherever you're going this summer. Birddogs has got you covered. They give you the freedom to wear one pair of shorts, like we said, on the golf course, wear them to a meeting, wear them on a date, whatever it is. Birddogs has you covered. And of course, all the different people, famous people that have spoken for Birddogs and worn their product, from Dave Portnoy to Bert Kreischer. Everybody out there has tried them out. And look, if you don't like pants or getting too dressed up and that sort of thing, you can relax with Birddogs. And you can go check out all their products they have at birddogs.com. But when you go, make sure you go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege, because that's where you're going to go, and you're going to enter our promo code LockedOnCollege, and they're going to throw in that free custom Birddogs Yeti-style tumbler with every order. Again, they are the perfect pants for dads that have a little extra gut. Birddogs going to make you look great, make you feel comfortable, and look, they're perfect for just in time for summer. Their shorts are comfortable, and they got something for everybody. Different designs. You can do them with the little drawstring, so you can pull them tighter, make them looser, whatever you want. They are Birddogs, and again, that website is birddogs.com/lockedoncollege. All right, run along here, Locked On SEC. And for those of you who don't know, in my normal day job, I do work with a sports talk station in Houston, and we had the privilege of carrying the Texas Longhorns on our station, and Texas Longhorns had a big event in Houston yesterday for the Texas X's, and Steve Sarkisian was in town speaking at the event, and our radio station was able to sit down with him. I was actually filming the interview while two of our fellow hosts, Adam Wexler and Adam Clanton, had the chance to sit down with Sark and ask him some questions. I told them a couple questions to throw in so we could include this in our interview on Locked On SEC. But when you watch the video on YouTube or you're listening, it's me behind the camera filming this. I'm not asking Sark the questions, but did talk to him a little bit off the air, and excited to see what he's going to do here. But I figured we could tie this into the SEC, because he talks about going to Bama this year, talks about joining the SEC here very, very soon, making a return trip to Bryant Denny Stadium, and much, much more. So here was just a little bit of the conversation with Steve Sarkisian, and he starts by talking about the excitement of the season being right around the corner.
It kind of signifies like football's around the corner. Right. We're doing these spring tours. We're doing the Texas Fight Tour. We've been in San Antonio. We've been in Dallas. We've been in Fort Worth. Now we're in Houston. and you're just getting around the fans. You're feeling the energy. It's been another exceptional year for Texas athletics, every sport, and I think that's inspiring. And so we get to celebrate all that. But for me personally, I know when we get through this kind of phase, my coaches are all on the road recruiting. Our players are back home right now. We ended spring semester. We don't start summer school until right after Memorial Day. But what it tells me is it's about to get real, because when we come back from Memorial Day, we start summer workouts. We start summer school. June is a huge recruiting month for us. And then that just leads us through July and August, and here it comes. And so it's a fun time. Again, you're not stressing over I have a game next week or a game in a month, so you get a chance to relax and enjoy your time with all the great support that we have.
How did things change maybe for you as it's no longer year one, it's not year two, you're into another off season, maybe starting with how you went about spring practice, the spring game, in preparation for what will end up being the final Big 12 season?
Well, I think like anything, anytime you take over a new job in year one, the old adage in the coaching world is it's like drinking out of a fire hose, right? I mean, there's so much coming at you in year one because, as coaches, I think we're pretty good at looking around corners, right, and seeing what's coming. In year one, you don't know what corner to look around because you just don't know. You don't know administration great. You don't know, how much orange tape there is to go through to get something done. You don't really know the facilities people. You're trying to figure so much out along with your own team, along with hiring a staff. You're trying to get to know those guys. So that year one is always challenging wherever you go. Year two, you start to find your groove a little bit. And then by the time year three rolls around, you got 2 feet on the ground. You feel very confident about what you're doing, especially if you're not making dramatic changes. Like we haven't had to make dramatic changes. We got a lot of great staff continuity. The players that have stayed in that time that we inherited, I think, are bought into what we're doing. And then we've got 2 now recruiting classes under our belt of players that believed in what we're doing, and that's why they chose to come. And in the end, it's setting up for this is our final year in the Big 12, and I'm glad you said it the way you said it, because that's what our focus is. So many times I'm doing interviews or I'm getting asked questions about the SEC, the SEC. The reality of it is, man, our goal is to go win the Big 12, and it just so happens to be the last year. And I think we've got a pretty good roster that gives us a chance to go do that. We got some good players. And so that's where our focus is, and we'll deal with the SEC when that comes. But, man, what a great opportunity we have now.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about the SEC all the way until game
second
two.
Second game of the season.
But that's on a overall record.
Yep.
That's not in a conference
gotcha.
record game, and that's gonna be a heck of a ball game. I spent 3 years of my life coaching in Bryant Denny Stadium for Nick Saban, and so it's going to be a great environment. They'll do a heck of a job. Their fans will be revved up, and their kids will be ready to play, and then the goal is to get our kids ready to play.
One question on that I thought our listeners would be curious about. We talked to Will Anderson last year when he was in town for the Lombardi Award, and obviously former Texans head coach Bill O'Brien and what's now the OC, and he talked about some of the dynamics with the coaches when you were at Alabama and players like Will Anderson and are on campus. And you know what their future probably holds if these players are putting in the work, and clearly that's exactly the type of player he is. From your standpoint, how would you describe a player like that?
Driven, focused. Will was that way from day one. I'll take credit for it now. I nicknamed him the Terminator his freshman year in training camp. The guy just every play, he didn't pick and choose, who he was going against or what the period was. He only knew one way to go. And that's a guy who's driven. That's a guy who's focused. That's a guy who, it wasn't so much about making it to the NFL. It was how did he want to play that play. And I think that gave him a chance to not worry about what was down the road, but be the best version of himself each and every single day and put in the work to try to be better the next day than he was today. Those guys are, that's what you want. That's what we're trying to hunt for in recruiting every day that we go out.
Talking to Steve Sarkisian here on Sports Talk 790. You mentioned Nick Saban, and there's a lot of names. You can go down the list of coaching greats and the programs that they coached at that made them great, and they made the program great. You know how that works. And there's no shortage of pressure at the University of Texas. You know that when you go in to take the job. Are you able to block that out? So much chatter about, is Texas back, or are they going in the right direction enough, or are the things being done that need to be done? do you just kind of, is that all noise to you? How do you handle that kind of talk at a program like this?
No, I think that's fair, and I think you said something in the very beginning of the question and the remark is that you have to know what you sign up for, right? I think that someone taught me a long time ago. You can take good news, you can take bad news. You hate surprises. And nothing here has been a surprise to me. I recognize the responsibility that you take on when you become the head football coach at the University of Texas. I knew that before I took the job. If I didn't think I could handle it, I wouldn't have taken the job. And so I think that that's the beauty of it. I was fortunate to get some decent exposure to high-profile jobs at the University of Washington and at USC. And probably the biggest thing I've learned is, to your point, you can't get caught up in what other people are saying and what other people are thinking or what other people are doing or their opinions of it. Because in the end, if you ride the emotional roller coaster of the media, the fans, things of that nature, one week you're the best coach ever. The next week you should be fired. And if you try to live life like that, man, you're not going to make it. You're just not going to make it. So I just try to put my head down, be the best head coach I can be the best inspiration I can be to all the people in our organization. I'm definitely, every day I'm humbled, I'm honored to be the head coach. But I try to make sure that I have a positive impact on all the people that I touch every day I go in that building. And so I don't really have time to worry about what everybody else is saying. I've got to focus on what we think is important and making sure we're putting forth the effort to improve in all facets.
All right, and just one more clip here with Steve Sarkisian. He was asked about the renewed rivalry potential with Texas A&M and what that means. Does he want that rivalry to come back? Here was Steve Sarkisian on the Texas A&M rivalry.
Oh, but do you want that rivalry back? I mean,
for
that's
sure.
a dumb question,
No.
but like that, it's been missing.
Yeah, no, I think like that, to me, for the people that know me, I love the pageantry and the passion of college sport. Okay. And I've been part of some great rivalries throughout my career, whether it's SC UCLA, SC Notre Dame, the Apple Cup, Washington State, the Iron Bowl, Auburn, Alabama, the Red River Showdown, which I think is the best game I've ever been a part of, going up to the Cotton Bowl and Texas OU and what that game stands for. But in the end, Texas A&M, I can remember as a kid growing up in California, watching that game Thanksgiving weekend of those two programs, competing with one another and just the pageantry and the fanfare and all that goes into it. So I'm a fan of all that. And as close to home as this rivalry is, I can't wait for it to get back because that's why we're in college sports, right? As much as we talk about it, households get divided. That's what it's for. It's bragging rights for 365 days and things of that nature. So, definitely looking forward to it. We'll see how it all shakes out here in a year or so.
That again, Steve Sarkisian, and we thank him so much for his time sitting down with our station in Houston, and of course allowing us to use this on Locked On SEC. In Texas, they're going to be here very, very soon in the SEC. All right, thank you guys so much for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, Greg McElroy and Cole Cubelic. They list their players, top 8 returning players in the SEC. We'll run through that list in just a sec. All right, run along here, Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. And I want to dive right back into it. And Greg McElroy and Cole Cubelic, they're on Jocks FM over there in Birmingham. And they both put out Tuesday morning their top 8 returning players in the SEC. Cubelic stuck with players who played in the SEC last season. McElroy added a guy who's transferring in. McElroy said not that many defensive players this year, very few known commodities on defense. So he only had 2. So let's take a look at the list, and here's how they ranked them. Cole Cubelic puts out his top 8 returning players. He's got Quinshon Judkins at number 1, the Ole Miss running back. He's got Brock Bowers, number 2, the Georgia tight end. At number 3, he's got LSU linebacker Harold Perkins. Number 4, he's got Juice Wells, wide receiver from South Carolina. Number 5, Rocket Sanders, Arkansas running back, who was so dynamic last year. Number 6, LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels. Number 7, LSU wide receiver Malik Neighbors. And 8, all the way down to 8, Alabama edge rusher Dallas Turner. Now, what jumps out here on Cole's list? 3 LSU players. 1 Ole Miss, 1 Georgia, 1 Arkansas, 1 Alabama. So maybe that tells you a little something where Cole Cubelic feels about LSU going into this year. At 3 of their returning players make his top 8 in the SEC. On the flip side, Greg McElroy, he's got who I would probably put number 1. Brock Bowers, Georgia tight end. He's got him number 1. He's got Malik Neighbors, the LSU wide receiver, at number 2. So Cole had him at number 7. Greg McElroy's got Malik Neighbors at number 2. At number 3, he's got Rocket Sanders. So, again, Cole had him at 5. And Greg McElroy's got him at 3. Harold Perkins comes in at number 4 on Greg's list. Jaden Daniels comes in at number 5. So, again, 3 LSU players in Greg McElroy's top 5 returning players. He's got Quinshon Judkins and Juice Wells tied for 6th. So he's cheating there a little bit, putting them both in a tie. Dallas Turner, the Alabama edge rusher, at number 7. And then he sneaks in Devin Leary, the Kentucky quarterback, at 8. So their lists are pretty identical in terms of the names that they've got on there. It's just Greg McElroy was able to slide in an extra name because he did a tie but with Quinshon Judkins and Juice Wells. But it's a good list. I mean, we'll be hashing this out throughout the season, talking about returning players in the SEC that we really like, but hard to argue with both those lists. I look at it and say, man, pressure on LSU this year. If they got that much returning talent and stars, if you will, from Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, and Harold Perkins, man, you guys better move some mountains here. But what about Georgia outside of Brock Bowers? No love for Ladd McConkey, no love for some of the other pieces that Georgia's got coming back this year. So, anyway, just thought that was interesting. Thought I would bring that to you guys. Thank you guys so much for making us your first listen every day. And everydayers, tomorrow on the show, you definitely want to check things out. We keep teasing it. Our buddy Eric Kane going to do a crossover with us, talk some Tennessee baseball. Our thanks to Steve Sarkisian for coming through today in one way or another on the show. And again, make sure you subscribe. Check us out on YouTube and on Locked On SEC, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.